Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Grandma Lou Show. This is your host, Kwasa, coming at you live from Maximum TV Channel 3, Belize, Central America. So I'm sending all of my folks over there in the cool United States some warm, positive, tropical vibes from Belize, Central America. So today on the Grandma Lou Show, I'm really excited about today's show. For those of you that may be joining us for the first time, and for those of you that are new to the Grandma Lou Show, please share the video. Please tell all your friends about it. Use whatever social media or fancy, dancy devices you have to put a reminder on your cell phone or on your iPad or on your computer to make sure you can tune in with us. So now that we have daylight savings time, we're about 2 hours. We have a 2-hour difference. So usually we're on at 1 o'clock, Belize, Central America, which I will believe would be 3 o'clock your time in the States. So please make sure you put a little reminder on your iPhone or your Android so you can tune in with us and make positive use of the technology to join in and see what we're doing down here in Belize, Central America. I'm sending all of you some nice warm vibes. I know it's still chilly over there. You know, I feel for you. So for those of you that are new to the Grandma Lou Show, my Grandma Lou is the inspiration for this show. She was my 94-year-old Bajan grandmother, and although she wasn't a vegan or a vegetarian, she is indeed my inspiration for consuming the way that I do, which is 100% whole, living, unprocessed, fresh, plant-based foods, right? Food that you can still recognize as food, food that is very peaceful, food that is very filling and nutrient-dense, food that doesn't have a mother and father that screams and yells in pain and, you know, runs for its life, is not wriggling on the plate, right? So it's peaceful food, food that fights cancer, that has lots of antioxidants, and food that is from the sun. So my Grandma Lou had the best attitude of anyone I have ever met on the planet. She was a big believer in eat your own food. That was her practice, and that is the practice that I've taken from her. Actually, all of those fresh foods that I saw Grandma get from the market, the lime, the thyme, the coconut, the hot pepper, the scallions, are the base of the food that I use as medicine today. And I really enjoy the way that I eat, so I don't have to diet. Grandma loved to eat, and she fed everyone that crossed the threshold into her home space. You wash your hands and kick off your shoes and give greetings, and Grandma put a nice piece of cocoa bread, her sweet cocoa bread, or some tea, or some marby, or sorrel. She served everyone who came into her home. So there was never an idea of anybody being poor. She was actually one of the most generous, wealthiest people I have ever met. Never had a bad attitude from her, and she never gave me any any negative deposits, right? She was always very pleasant and present. That's why we call this the Grandma Lou Show. Grandma was huge. She was very big on common sense. And on today's Grandma Lou Show, I am really excited to share with you about sugar and fat versus skinny. So there are a lot of the elder women in my family on both sides. They have a saying, I can tell you, or rather I can show you better than I can tell you. And I found as a mother and as someone that has been a fitness coach and as someone that has also been an educator in the health field, particularly around natural health, with a focus on fresh, whole living foods, that it really drives a point home when you can paint a picture in people's minds, as well as giving them things they can experience and taste that cuts through all that intellectual jargon and gobbledygook, you know, beyond the fat and the proteins and the carbs and the dieting. When people taste food that is delicious and that's prepared simply and they enjoy it, it becomes a no-brainer. In fact, that's one of the big principles of Body-Culinary. And actually, because of Grandma Lou, I could eat for $5 very well, no matter where you put me on the planet, or less. That's a principle that I've lived with all the time, and people would wonder, well, how do you eat healthy? Well, Grandma didn't eat a whole bunch of stuff in packages, right? She made all of her own food. And today, I'm going to help you create some real images and some education around sugar. Now, someone that's worked as a personal trainer and a fitness coach for almost 2 decades, clients constantly, and the general public constantly, throw all sugars, right, which is fuel and energy, into one big bag. And quite often, some clients brag, well, I'm not eating any sugar. I cut all my carbohydrates out. And people quite often dump the processed food sugars in with the natural sugars. So you have many people that are scared to eat fruit, which is a whole living unprocessed food, right? We have a natural sweet tooth, And our brain's primary source of fuel is sugar, just not the empty sugar that doesn't have any water, nutrients, fiber, or antioxidants, anything that fights cancer left in it. So we really want to make the distinction, and today we're going to show you some pictures and some visuals and some basic education. I'm really eager to share this with all of my Belizeans. Yes, I want to make sure that this is now my addition to my community, because my godparents always told me create better family, friends, and homes in all walks of life. Right? So you leave a positive imprint wherever you go. You share whatever your gifts are. So I love education around food and fitness. And we're going to show some wonderful, wonderful examples to help you make the distinctions between fuel and energy, and fuel that doesn't leave, as I like to say, waste on your waist. Fuel that is fueling your brain and is not leaving any toxic residue behind in your arteries or for your organs or for your brain. Also on today's show, we're going to be looking at the flip side of fat versus skinny. And I definitely have to give a shout out to one of my mentors, Queen Afua, out there in Brooklyn. She was one of my first mentors. And she was the first one that really got me thinking of obesity and being underweight as flip sides of the same coin. So at Heal Thyself, when I worked there many years ago, quite often we had a 1-day shut-in, 3-day fast, 7-day fast, 21-day fast. People went for 40 days. Every now and then you find somebody that went for 100 days of juice fasting. I want to make that distinction. She was also one of my first teachers that really drove home the point that many people have so much toxic waste in their system that if they just went on to an extreme water fast, because you know the ego is way ahead of the body, if many people went on a water fast, which is a trend today, right, in the natural world, people have so many toxins in their body that all of those toxins and waste will flood into the bloodstream, and people will quite often reabsorb that stuff back into the system, especially when you keep in mind that people have been clogging their bodies up with so much junk. They're not really eliminating, their kidneys are not filtering, their liver has been clogged up, their colon is clogged up, the skin is clogged up. So quite often, all of those toxins are reabsorbed back into the system, and it can actually be quite dangerous to have all those toxins floating around at one time. And to make matters more serious, quite often people don't prepare for a fast the right way, or in a way that's very efficient, right, in terms of eating fresh fruits and vegetables for weeks before, and then break a fast, right? Break a fast the proper way with light foods like fruit, juicy fruits, and so on. So there really is a science. Quite often people are very eager to skip over the process, and we could quite often damage the body if we just let the ego go way ahead of the body and not respect what we've been doing to our body all this time. So fat or overweight, and we're only talking about adipose tissue or negative fat, right? The visceral fat that wraps around the organ. Everybody does have a certain amount of healthy fat, but we're going to make some of those distinctions today. And we're going to be talking about fat versus skinny as them being two sides of the same coin. And keep in mind, I've worked with many obese clients over the years, and I've also worked with clients who are anorexic. And quite often they have a lot of the same patterns. So we're going to jump right into our first video. Please make sure you share this video, because it's going to be a lot of important information here, and we're going to take a look at our first clip.
Over the next 8 weeks, 8 extremely underweight people will be booked into this feeding clinic for a radical 5-day diet swap. They will then be sent home with a 3-month healthy eating plan before returning to the clinic for a new weigh-in. But the real shock tactic is they will be joined by a supersized opposite, who'll teach super skinny a lesson in eating whilst tackling their own weight problems. Overseeing proceedings is Dr. Christian Jessen.
It's a radical approach, but these extreme opposites are really far more similar than they think. If they can help each other to understand that their relationship with food can change, then it will really benefit them both.
First into the feeding clinic is tiny Tatiana Moxie, a super skinny desperate to plump up.
I'm not very happy with the way that I am at the moment, so I think it'd be better to look a bit healthier and have a bit more weight on me.
Tatiana has already undergone a thorough medical to make sure she is up to the challenge ahead.
22 inches.
Now it's time to work out the size of the problem.
So you are 93 pounds, okay?
That's just 6 stone 9 pounds. She's at least 1.5 stone underweight.
I make your BMI to be 15. If I tell you that a normal body mass is between about 20 and 25, you can see that you're actually quite a lot below where you should be. You know what you're going to be doing this week? You're going to swap your diets around. How do you feel about that?
I think it's going to be difficult, but I do want to do it.
19-year-old Sussex customer services worker Tatiana is a serial undereater whose daily diet is the equivalent of a 4-year-old.
I think I've always been slim. I've never been probably over 7 stone. On a typical day, I would probably have a cereal bar or toast for breakfast. I would probably just have a jacket potato with tuna at lunchtime with salad.
But it's a case of her eyes are bigger than her belly. She rarely finishes what's on her plate, even when her parents cook her favourite healthy food.
We normally serve her a full plateful, but she'll only usually eat about a quarter of that, or perhaps even half.
The reason that I want to do this is just because I don't like people touching me, putting their hands around my wrists and saying, oh, you need to put on weight because you're too skinny, you don't eat enough, because they don't really know me, and it does upset me a lot. So I think people would stop doing that if they saw that I did have a little bit more weight on me.
A shock tactic is on its way. Larger than life, Sandra Andrew is a 39-year-old internet seller who has 5 days to teach Tatiana her joy of eating.
The people that I find that are too slim, I don't know, they kind of remind me of lollipops. You know, with the big head and sort of little tiny body.
And by sizing down to Tat's child-sized diet for a few days, Sandra's own weight problem will be tackled, hopefully once and for all. Where Tatiana spurns food, Sandra embraces it, all too wholeheartedly. And with big eating issues herself, she spends most nights at home gorging on takeaways and fatty snacks.
I don't really have breakfast, lunch, dinner in that sort of traditional sense. Sometimes I might sort of eat 5, 6 times.
These two are polar opposites when it comes to extreme eating, and their bodies scream the results. Sandra's thigh is 7 inches bigger than Tatiana's waist. With a 17-stone difference, these two are here to teach each other a hard lesson in food and nutrition. By swapping diets, they will shock each other into confronting their issues and changing their dangerous habits.
How do you think you're going to get on with your super skinny housemate?
It depends on whether or not she objects to, you know, trying my diet, which maybe she will.
Do you think she'll manage it?
No.
Tatiana has never spent time with an overweight person. So how will she react to her new feeding buddy?
When I see someone that's really, really overweight, like obese, it does make me feel quite like I don't really want to look at you, just because I sort of think, why have you made yourself like that? It's not normal to be like that.
Hello. Hello, I'm Sandra.
I'm Tatiana.
Hi, Tatiana. Oh, God.
What do you normally eat, like, in a day?
Well, sort of... Oh, my God. Our plate's bigger than your whole tummy. I don't know how you're going to fit it in.
Oh, my God. How much is she actually going to eat? And I'm going to have to eat everything that she eats. I'm sure she'll help me through it, and I'll have to help her because she'll be starving. I don't eat that much.
Like what?
If I had a plate about that big, I'd probably only eat half of it.
I don't think it's going to work.
Sandra will be trying to add fat to Tat by handing over her meals for the next few days. So to show exactly what they've got to stomach, Dr. Jessen is going to demonstrate just what their week's worth of food looks like.
I want to show you both how ludicrously insane your diets are. And I'm going to show you now exactly how much you get through.
Starting with a week's worth of breakfast.
More toast, anything else? Oh, you have a little bit of cereal and a lot of tea, and that's it for an entire week. Let's go on to lunch then. A sandwich, some potatoes. This is a week's worth of lunches. No afternoon snack. I don't know what that is. Oh, that's your soup.
Yeah.
A bit of chicken leg. Bit of salad. This is a week of food for you that's supposed to keep you going.
But how do you survive? I don't know before now.
Do you think now you can see that perhaps you're not actually eating enough, and when you think you're full, you haven't actually taken enough food in?
A woman's recommended daily amount is 2,000 calories a day. Tatiana's consuming just 1,400. So she's under-eating by 4,200 calories, or at least 2 days' worth of food every week. She's lacking nutrients that will soon be replaced when she supersizes her diet to Sandra's.
Right, let's go on to lunch. Meatballs, more rice. I think we're getting into a bit of snacking now. Chips, fish fingers, fish fingers, fish fingers, fried eggs, more fish fingers, burgers, great. More of your curries coming in, lots more white bread. Can you see now where you're going wrong?
Sandra's clocking up 3,700 calories a day, a staggering overeat of 11,900 calories, or 6 days' worth of food every week. Still to come, Dr. Christian Jessen gives Tatiana a shocking diagnosis.
Because you had such an increased risk of damage to your joints, damage to the ligaments.
And
All right, so as you can see there, the point that we want to drive home is that obesity and underweight, whether it's bulimic or anorexia, they're flip sides of the same coin. And actually, both of them are focused, these two individuals that we just took a look at, both of them were eating pretty unhealthy processed foods. One was just under eating, and she wasn't actually eating enough fuel to fuel her brain or her organs. So her bone density is at risk, her ability to think and to focus at risk, her whole life system, her whole organs and her system is at risk. The flip side of that coin is that we saw a woman of African descent, right? So we had one Caucasian woman, one African woman from the diaspora. She was the other flip side of that unhealthy weight. So quite often she didn't get any sleep. She was snacking all different hours of the night, not burning the fuel. And these were just habits that they had picked up. And these are coping mechanisms in terms of the way that they deal with stress, the ideas that they have around their body image. We really want to drive home that unhealthy is unhealthy, and it's not necessarily based on this look or your weight. You can be very, very slim or very skinny and underweight, and that does not mean that you're healthy. It doesn't mean that your body can perform. You can be very, very slim and have diabetes. I had an uncle that was very tall and fine, and he had one of his legs amputated from diabetes, and I also had a grandmother who had her feet started to burst open from diabetes. So they're flip sides of the same coin. Actually, if I go back to my mentor, Queen Afua, I remember once her telling me that you could gain weight by fasting, and that was something I really couldn't wrap my mind around for a long time. But over the years, I got to understand that some people's bodies are so clogged up that they're not even able to assimilate and suck up and use all the nutrition that they're putting into their system because their system is clogged. So quite often, some people that have certain allergies, I've experienced people that couldn't eat stone fruit or things that had a severe cleansing reaction in their body, certain natural foods. After they had been eating natural foods and some juice fasting, again I want to stress juice fasting, which is nutritional fasting, after doing a cleanse and cleaning their body out, it was like a reset. So then they were able to eat a lot of the fruits and things that they weren't able to previously. So we want to drive home again that disordered or unhealthy eating are flip sides of the same coin, whether you're underweight and you're not eating enough calories. And when I say calories, I mean from fresh plant foods, because there are people that are eating food, and unfortunately the standard American diet, I can even think of a popular doctor who was doing everything right. She was doing chicken and fish, and she still couldn't understand how she got breast cancer, right, from eating animal foods. So this is 2018. We have the technology at our fingertips. We're in a time where your children, quite often, and young people will bypass the adults and go straight to Google to find information out. So we do have information available to us, so we don't have to fall prey to our excuses or look for people to amen your excuses, not to take 110% responsibility for your life, your brain, and your health. So in continuing with today's show, sugar and fat versus skinny, right, being flip sides of the same coin, we're going to continue to take a look at how these people got a realistic picture to make a light bulb go off in their head and help them to reconnect to what they're doing. Because quite often, nobody wants to hurt themselves, at least not consciously, right? But it is common knowledge that many, or if maybe most of the society participates in what I observe is socially acceptable suicide. And it may be a slow suicide, but by that we mean knowingly putting substances masquerading as food, toxic substances like it's a laughing or a joking matter, into the body that alter our motor skills, right, that numb our senses, that are taxing to the liver, that clog the arteries. These are things that are social habits and that are actually looked at as entertainment. Social gatherings, baby showers, weddings, football games have all become a grand excuse where people spend lots of money for a glutton fest, right? And don't get it twisted, you can even do this as a vegan, even as a raw vegan, with stuffing ourselves habitually for entertainment with tons and tons of expensive nuts, right, to push down feelings, and quite often using the food as a cigarette. So we're going to continue to take a look at sugar and be educated on what do we mean by sugar, so we can make a distinction between what are the healthy sugars that the brain craves, right, for energy. We want to get a clear picture on just how much energy do we need, and it's nothing like having some great visuals. And we'll continue to explore the flip side of fat versus skinny being flip sides of the same coin. Let's continue to explore.
So far in the feeding clinic, supersized Desroy has struggled on a diet fit for a child.
I think I'm eating for my daughter here.
Whilst super skinny size 0 Louise has failed to finish a meal.
There was sort of 2 of everything as well, 2 eggs, 2 sausages, 2 rashers of bacon.
A closer look at her bird-like frame has given her food for thought.
Oh my gosh.
But is it enough to spur her on to eat more? It's day 2, and breakfast kicks off with a typical West Indian start to the day.
What is that?
Pork bellies.
Oh, for breakfast.
So you've never had anything like that before?
No,
Pork bellies and avocado?
no, not at all. It feels like I'm sitting down to dinner. It's quite fatty, isn't it? All this food being put in front of me is quite daunting because I'm not used to eating large amounts. To eat something like that, it's quite difficult for me.
Whilst unfortunately Louise looks no closer to finishing a meal,
I'm done.
Desroy struggles with the opposite problem.
It's unfulfilling sort of thing.
I really do eat a lot of meat, so that breakfast was really deflating.
An evening meal of a Desroy favourite. Prawn balls, spare ribs and egg fried rice poses yet another challenge for Louise.
Did you not like the prawn balls?
It's a bit rubbery.
Whilst Desroy gets his first proper adult portion of the swap in the form of a shepherd's pie. But he's still feeling the effects of the last 2 days' tiny meals.
So how's it going for you then, this diet?
It is hard, but I was sort of geared up for that when I come here. Like, I knew it wasn't going to be easy. But I'm coping.
My main reasons for doing this is my health. I also want to do this because of my wife and my daughter. I don't feel that I'm doing them any justice in being this size.
Desroy suffers from a host of medical conditions, including asthma and diabetes. Illnesses directly linked to his size.
He broke his toe recently, and there was a panic about whether an infection was going to set in and the complications of that because of his diabetes.
Being the size that I am, every day is pretty much a challenge. You're not as active as you should be, so it's a push to do pretty much everything. More incentive for me to lose weight.
Staying off his supersized portions of carb-heavy West Indian food wouldn't be a bad start. And this is exactly what he's serving up for Louise for dinner. Mutton dressed up as curry, accompanied with a mountain of rice, peas and fried plantain. Desroy will be chowing down on an English classic, good old fish and chips.
You really eat all of that?
No, I don't.
I thought not.
I would fill those rolls with chips, and then I would eat a bit of that fish.
He only gets the portions Louise would eat herself.
Must admit, I don't really like it.
So you really don't like that? Not being able to have the curried mutton with rice and peas, that's one of my first loves, do you know what I mean? And to see it sort of sat there, not being eaten and not being able to go near it was very, very hard.
That's banana.
A pumpkin, similar to banana.
Yeah, I don't really like that either.
No? You don't like any of it?
It wasn't really something that I like, and probably not something that I'd eat again.
Despite the fact that Louise has already acknowledged her size 0 look isn't healthy, she still hasn't finished a single meal. Dr. Jessen's concerned Louise could fail the swap and decides to step in.
Louise, how is the diet going so far, your diet swap? How are you finding it?
It's difficult. The portion sizes are huge.
And not what you're used to?
Not what I'm used to at all.
What has it told you about your diet?
That I'm not eating the right amount. I'm eating the amount to keep me going, but I'm not eating enough for anything else.
That's a really good point, and I'm really glad you've realised that. That, okay, your diet isn't that unhealthy, well, there are areas that could be better, but it's just not enough in it. You know, you're eating the bare minimum to sustain your body, but no more. So if you want to put on weight, you have to increase your calories. What I want you to really try and do is to finish your food. I don't think you've managed it yet, but I'm hoping that we'll see you eat one of Desroy's meals, a whole meal, because that, I really want to show you actually you can eat.
All right, so in continuing today with the Grandma Lou Show, with our exploration of sugar and fat versus skinny. Again, this is Kwasa coming at you live from Belize, Central America, Maximum TV Channel 3. Please make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Make sure you go on over to the Body-Culinary YouTube channel. There's a fantastic adult puppet series called Sister Butterfly and Sister Monkey Learn to Eat Better. So you're going to find a very politically incorrect butterfly and a monkey in the garden discovering peanuts or ground nuts because they had never experienced them before. Mangoes growing off the tree. They discovered cashew fruits on the with the cashew nut, as well as Sister Butterfly going through all types of changes and realizing just how much her food and her fuel is affecting every aspect of her life, from her relationships with other creatures as well as with her children. So please make sure you check it out. Sister Butterfly and Sister Monkey Learn to Eat Better. It's a phenomenal puppet series. There are 10 free episodes over on the Body-Culinary YouTube channel. So please make sure you subscribe and check the little bell so that you can get a notification whenever there are new episodes. So in continuing with our exploration today, you can see this woman that's very underweight, really putting lots of food on her plate, but quite often she doesn't finish her food. Now, when I was growing up, you were forced to finish all of the food on your plate, but that didn't necessarily mean that the food was healthy. So looking back, now I can understand that many, my grandparents, and there's some people that survived through the Depression. I remember opening the broom closet and seeing old cans stacked up of beets and string beans, which really, back in the day, had me like, ugh, really dislike vegetables. I'm like, ugh, they were from a can. I mean, fresh back then. I thought frozen was fresh. I think I still have family members I've met at a family reunion, a family gathering, and they thought that fresh spinach was fresh frozen spinach. So there's a lot to be said for how we're acculturated and what we learn from family gatherings and from those people that are preparing the food. I was fortunate enough to be able to sit next to my Grandma Lou, and as I helped her chop seasoning and as I helped her grate coconut for sweetbread, I learned so many lessons. And I say again, Grandma Lou was not a vegan or a vegetarian, although she is my inspiration because she was big on preparing her own food. She fed people food that was delicious and prepared with a lot of love. So I've just taken the baton that she gave to me, that coconut, the hot pepper, the lime, the thyme, the scallions, which all of those foods are actually medicine. And I'm passing that baton and leaving it better than she gave it to me by preparing all of those foods, and it's quite a challenge that I love. Preparing the sweet bread, making it live with Grandma Lou's sweet coconut drops, without any flour, without boiling the food to death, without frying it to death, so that I get all the medicine and the nutritional value out of it. And my Grandma Lou is who gave me my hand at seasoning food. So, you know, that's a lot of fun. So we're going to learn some more about sugar, because now as a fitness professional, as someone that's competed in fitness, been around a lot of fitness competitors, that has been personal training people for almost 2 decades, and did African dance and yoga, everybody in the locker room or folks that are competing, people are always talking about being slim and skinny, and there's always this conversation about sugar. People dump all sugars into the same category, and fresh, whole, living, unprocessed food still has its water, its fiber, and all of its nutrients intact. It is not the same as a white substance that can sit on a shelf when you turn out the lights, can sit there for months and years, that has no water, no fiber, it can't rot. So one of the things that I like to put forward is that I'd rather eat food that is going to rot, plant foods that is, that are going to rot, so that I don't have to rot. I want whole, living, unprocessed foods that I can recognize. I can still recognize the apple. I can still recognize the cucumber. I can still recognize the plantain. I can still recognize the tomato. I can see the color in it. There's fiber. My bags are very, very heavy, my produce bags. So that's letting me know that I'm getting real food, and it cannot sit on the shelf for years and years and years and years. So do the best with what you have, but we really want to drive home fresh, whole, living, unprocessed foods. So let's continue in our exploration of sugar, because there's nothing like an example that makes the light bulbs go off in your head. So again, please share this with family members. We all know someone that's always saying, I know I need to eat better, I know I want to change the way that I eat, but quite often our addictive taste buds and our way of comforting ourselves with food as if it's cigarettes overrides our common sense. But there's nothing like a healthy dose of example that, boop, makes the switch flip. So let's take a look.
We Brits love our sugar. It's one of life's great pleasures. And we're getting through over 1 million tons a year. That's 15 teaspoons each a day. There's no getting away from it. That's more than we should be eating. I'm meeting up with 4 rather brave volunteers in Newcastle. I'm going to start by showing them how much sugar each of them is getting through every week. Got a table each. See if you can pick your table out. You already have.
Yeah, that's me. Sweets.
That's terrible.
They all suspect they might have too sweet a tooth and want to do something about it. So I'm asking them to cut back to just 6 teaspoons a day, a target the World Health Organization believes is the best to aim at. First up is Cara Patterson. Here's Cara's table. It is predominantly brown.
Yes.
Lots of chocolate.
I even know that you eat chocolate for breakfast.
I do, yeah. Chocolate and coffee.
Cara Patterson splits her time between working at a school and being home looking after her 4-year-old son, Noah.
Sit next to his mum.
That in order.
She worries that sugar is taking over her life.
I'm definitely addicted to sugar. I crave it. The worst time that I want sugar is as soon as I wake up. Breakfast always contains something sweet, whether it's cakes, biscuits, chocolate.
Well, Cara, your average daily sugar intake was 28 teaspoons.
28 teaspoons a day.
It's not good, is it?
So Cara's eating nearly 5 times the 6 teaspoons a day target that I want her to aim for. This is going to mean some big changes for her.
Ah, you may well look nervous, Rick.
Rick Shabila comes from a Sikh family with a history of type 2 diabetes. He worries that his love of sugary Indian sweets could land him in the same boat.
They're so colourful and they look so innocent, but they are little assassins.
You've got your Indian desserts, which we know are very high in sugars.
Yeah, these are normally accompanied with some ice cream.
Which would be adding even more sugars.
I think, Pauline, you should do the honours, or would you like to reveal your sugar consumption?
No.
You want Pauline to do it? Okay.
29 teaspoons per day.
In a day?
A day.
That's really terrifying, to be honest.
Like Cara, Rick is also nearly 5 times over where I want him to be. Audrey Cannon feels her weight is getting out of control. A life on the road as an acquisitions manager has led to a diet of processed food and sugary snacks.
I'll be going to meetings and things and coming out to meetings and jumping straight in the car. It's just as easy for me to eat in the car as it is to stop off and have something because I just want to get home sometimes.
You're having quite a few supermarket ready meals. We've got a chili beef here. That contains 5 teaspoons of sugar in half the pack, which is a portion.
I wouldn't even think to look at the sugar content. I would maybe look at the calories or the fat, but I've never ever thought of looking at sugar.
Your average daily intake was 23 teaspoons.
Oh dear.
So, to be on target, Audrey's going to have to cut pretty well 3/4 of the sugar from her diet. Simon Gallagher loves his fizzy pop.
That's so cold.
But at 26 stone, he's becoming increasingly worried about his health.
On a normal day, I'd have 3 or 4 cans of fizzy drink. If I'm at home, it can be pretty much any amount until I feel like sick, basically, or until I haven't got any left.
Simon, you're smiling now?
Yeah, out of nerves.
The problem is that you have a huge amount of sugar. As it stands, you're having a whopping 39 teaspoons of sugar every day.
That's a lot.
Just to reiterate, this is 57 kilos per year, or 14,000 teaspoons of sugar that you're putting into your body.
Simon is 6.5 times over and will have to make the biggest changes of all. Although current guidelines suggest we should aim at less than 12 teaspoons of sugar a day, the World Health Organization thinks if we can reduce this to 6, it would have even bigger health benefits. It's going to be a tough target for my volunteers, but I'm hoping the more I can learn about sugar, the more I can help them cut back. The sugars we need to be looking out for are known as free sugars. These include the sugars found in honey, syrups and fruit juices. But the main culprit is refined sugar we add to food. But what does refining sugar actually involve? And why does it make it a potential health problem? Biologist Dr. Marty Jobson is going to help me find out.
This is one piece of sugarcane. I've cut it in half.
Beautiful looking thing.
So it's a huge grass that grows down in the tropics, and this stuff is packed full of sugar. And the way we get it out is the first thing we have to do is we need to break it down a bit. So here, look, have a mallet. And what I want you to do is just sort of... We can, anywhere you want. Start at that end, OK? That's it. OK, I think you've enjoyed that far too much.
I did,
I'll take
actually.
that away.
And all my calories off, too.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this bowl. You need to go around there, catch the juice as it comes out of the mango. Here we go.
Easier said than done, Marty.
Yeah, there's some spluttering out.
All sugars are natural and come from plants.
Are you all right there?
Yes.
Sugar cane and sugar beet are used in sugar production as they have particularly high concentrations. All All this refining is designed to make that concentration even higher.
I've safely delivered of some sugary juice down here.
Okay.
Carbon dioxide is then used to remove impurities like wax, gum and fats, all with the aim of giving us pure, refined sugar.
That's it. And now, we just have to boil it down. So what we have now is a thick syrup. We leave that to cool and the sugar will start to crystallise out. And what you'll end up with is this, which is what I made earlier, which is...
Refined sugar.
Refined sugar. There's a lot of treacle there as well.
Yeah.
But that is incredibly sweet.
However, there's not that much of it, is there, considering it came from all of this bulk here and all the effort it took to get it out?
Yes, exactly. What we're going to throw away all of this roughage and fibre. So what you're left with here is essentially pure calories.
So the refined sugar that we use at home has basically had all the fibre and roughage stripped away to become pure energy. And Marty wants to show me just how much energy there is in the 4 grams of sugar that make up a level teaspoon.
I've taken a teaspoon, a level teaspoon, mind you, of icing sugar and put one in each of these tubes. We've got 2 teaspoons of sugar. You take those, put them on first. And what we're going to do is blow down these tubes. Blow, mind you. Count of 3. 3, 2, 1.
Wow! So all that energy in one level teaspoon of sugar.
Exactly. That's the energy you get if you eat it as well. It's the same amount of energy.
The flames may look impressive, but this energy is the real danger of sugar. If you don't burn it off, it can make you fat very quickly. But I had no idea just how quickly.
Imagine, say, you're drinking 3 cups of tea a day. Okay. You put 2 teaspoons of sugar in every cup, 365 days. Now imagine you're also not burning off that. How much of my lovely fat substitute would you end up in your artificial belly if all of your sugar that you put into your tea was turned into fat and it wasn't burnt off?
6 teaspoons a day for a whole year and I didn't burn it off.
Correct. How many of these? One of those, do you reckon?
One
of those?
Let's try one.
OK, let's do one.
Sugar is one of the cheapest forms of calories. It's not just bad for your teeth. If you have too much, your liver will end up turning it into fatty acids that your body will store as fat.
It feels really uncomfortable.
So this is the second of my bottles.
OK.
More?
I don't want more, but...
There is more, I'm afraid.
Oh, my goodness.
There we go. We're getting there, we're getting there. So what you've got there is 4.5 kilos of fat. That's over half a stone.
I know, I can feel it.
And all because of your 6 teaspoons of sugar that you were having every day for a whole year that were excess to what you need. Having a sweet tooth like that can lead to weight problems which could be seriously dangerous.
If just a few excess calories from sugar can cause issues over time, what have high sugar diets done to my 4 volunteers? At Newcastle University, Professor Mike Tranell is going to find out.
One of the problems with sugar is it allows you to take large amounts of calories on very quickly, which can make you obese.
Mike uses high-tech equipment to measure the body fat percentage of my 4 volunteers.
So at the moment, 51% of your body is fat.
Really? Wow. That's a lot. It's half of my body weight.
All 4 have levels that are higher than they should be, and it's this body fat that can lead to health problems.
Gaining weight can link to heart disease, diabetes and other long-term conditions.
And further tests show that my volunteers are already in danger.
The background of high sugar high body fat is going to place more and more stress on your liver, on your muscles, but mainly on the pancreas. And over time, if you don't do something, you'll be having to take insulin through an injection, which is what happens with people when they have type 2 diabetes for a long period of time.
All right, so is this drawing a picture for you? Is this creating a picture for you? Quite often, folks are making deals with whatever they call their God as they're being wheeled into the hospital room, onto the operating table. That's when they're making their deals, talking about, I'm going to change, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And once the medication and the pain wears off, quite often we go back to the same habits. I've seen people that have literally been on their deathbed, and they didn't change the way that they ate because they didn't enjoy the food. Quite often over the years, many people would say, don't you drink coffee? No. Don't you drink alcohol? No. And if I have to make a big distinction, I've always been so clear and very present as to the havoc, the absolute havoc that toxic substances, narcotics, alcohol, all alcohol, smoking, drinking, fast foods. I'm so clear that they basically wiped out my entire family, that I don't find it enticing. And I love to eat. You know, my entire family, both sides, the Bajan side and the southern side, we know how to season food. We like to eat. So I'm very, very clear, though. I saw my grandmother's feet having to be washed with betadine because they were swollen and bursting open from diabetes. I remember my uncle that had his leg amputated from diabetes. I'm very well aware of my cousin that has had a mastectomy, and cousins that have had cancer. I'm very well aware of the younger cousins that I never thought would become overweight, and I just see these patterns. Doesn't mean that they're not, you know, beautiful, that their spirit is not beautiful people, but there's a disconnect somewhere where generationally these habits, it's mostly self-inflicted habits, we're passing down to our young people. And I have to say, you know, children don't buy groceries. So quite often we're sharing our habits, beneficial and unhealthy, with our offspring, with our children. And it's really a matter of responsibility and a re-education. It doesn't take any more time necessarily to prepare fruits and vegetables in terms of cutting them up, learn how to cut them up in all different types of sizes and shapes so that you can easily chew and digest them. It's just a relearning process. Actually, it's going to save you time, right? Because you don't have so many dishes to wash. You don't have to buy so much dish liquid, if any at all. You don't have to scrape pots and pans. Quite often you can rinse things with water. But the true cost is to your energy level and your well-being, as well as buying bigger sets of clothes and so on. Something also to note is that depression, which is very, very common today, a lot of the population, especially in the States, is medicated. And it's become socially acceptable to medicate. And we're not by any means putting anybody down. But we're putting substances in to alter our brain chemistry. So wouldn't it make sense that when we're eating, not to eat primarily for the biceps and the triceps and what we look like, but to eat foods that nourish the brain, not clog the arteries of the brain and of the heart, but to eat foods that nourish the brain, because that's the control center. I'm quite sure many of us haven't even given thought to eating for our brain function, right, for that control center. So lack of movement, and which is going to equate to a lack of circulation, which is going to be that the nutrition that you are eating is not going to be able to circulate throughout the whole body, is closely related to depression. Not moving and being in a rut, or habitually in a rut here, is linked to depression. Not moving, not getting sunshine on your face. And I do get, if you're living up north, you know, you have several months of ice cold, finger-numbing cold. However, the body doesn't care about your schedule or your opinion. It needs what it needs, and it needs whole, living, unprocessed foods, plant-based, that don't leave waste on your waist, leave waste in your arteries, that clog up your brain, and that sap you of your life force and your energy. So, in continuing with today's Grandma Lou Show, again, make sure that you subscribe to Maximum TV Channel 3 here in Belize. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m., approximately 1 p.m. Belize time, and I believe you're 2 hours later over in the States. So I guess that's going to be about 3 o'clock, so you can save it and put a little reminder on your iPhone or your Android phone. Again, please make sure you also go on over and check out the puppet series, Sister Butterfly and Sister Monkey Learn to Eat Better. And check out our politically incorrect butterfly and monkey as they discover cashew fruits and mangoes and groundnuts growing here in Belize, and they actually got their start growing tomatoes on the fire escape in Brooklyn. So it's a fantastic puppet series. There are 10 free episodes. So go on over and subscribe to Body-Culinary on YouTube, and we post all kinds of beautiful recipes and cakes and pies and things, because as my son used to tell me, Ma, people don't understand what you're eating. So many people would think that I'm eating just an apple, or, you know, those things are great too, and there's simplicity, because sometimes people can get so gourmet that they're eating tons and tons and tons of nuts, which can still overload the liver with fats. But if you just take your time to prepare your food, you can make the most beautiful dishes. Simple, or as fancy as you want to make them, from fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, with more than enough protein, more than enough nutrition. Ideally, we want to get vitamin D from the sun, so that means rather than trying to get it secondhand in a pill, make it a priority to get some kind of sun on your skin. And also, as you'll notice in some of the clips we're looking at today, there's a dramatic connection between not getting enough sleep and cortisol, which will throw your body's rhythms off and causes people to gain unhealthy weight, which is a type of stress. So these are actually real simple things. Grandma just went to bed at a decent hour. She wasn't up all night exhausting herself looking at the internet and surfing. She didn't gossip. She was always busy beautifying or organizing. You know, she always had things to do. She didn't spend her time on mindless entertainment. She did like some good soca music, though. She was jumping up at her 90th birthday. So in continuing with the Grandma Lou Show, we're going to continue to explore just a little more of sugar, so we get a real picture of what sugar is, right? As we saw in the earlier clips, sugar is energy. And there was that wonderful example of the sugar being boiled down, right? That's coming from the sugar cane. They actually took the fresh sugar cane and ground it and squeezed the juice out of it, which is actually pretty nutritious. And I get sugar cane here. You know, if you're out in Brooklyn, you got to check out Brother Julio, my Dominican brother that has the hookup for all the Caribbean people, and West Indians know where he is over there off of Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. But you got to find your sources to get your natural treats, right? Because if you're having treats all the time, there is no need to cheat. When you have treats all the time, there's no cheat in my vocabulary, because I enjoy my food every single day. I feast. So it's what saves me, right? As a person that really loves to eat, I used to be a junk food junkie, and I've had every junk food, high end and low end, on the market. I worked an extern at one of the top restaurants in New York, and my grandmother and my mother have quite a hand at seasoning food, so my food has to taste good or I wouldn't make it this far, right? So we're going to continue to explore what sugar really is, fat versus skinny, and of course I always like to delve into the grandmothers, right? This is called the Grandma Lou Show, and my grandma. If you just watch grandmothers, or if you're blessed to have a friend or someone in your family that loves to prepare food, and even better if it's healthy, to stay in the food prep area with them, it's such a healing experience, a fulfilling experience to share your food, to eat food that's been prepared with a lot of love and care, which is again why we encourage you to do like Grandma Lou did and prepare your own food, as well as make sure you have spill-proof containers. These are all things that Body-Culinary teaches in our food classes. Take your time to prepare your food and bring it in attractive containers that are spill-proof, so that when everybody's whipping out their junk food and their McDonald's and their curry this and their curry that, that you have your own beautifully prepared food that you enjoy. Especially as if you're living in a fast-paced city lifestyle, quite often we have to take our food with us on the road. And I, for one, would always make sure that when I was preparing my food, I'd put a couple of extra containers to the side, so that I'd have some if I wanted another snack. And I'd put stuff to the side for the next day for my sister and for my son, so there will be less dishes to wash. You know, you come up with a rhythm. The same way you can prepare things that are unhealthy, it doesn't take any more time. It takes a willingness and a commitment to responsibility, 110% responsibility for your life. Can you still get a disease? Yes. Can you still get hit by a car? Yes. However, it is time, it is well past time for us to accept in action 110% responsibility for our health. Do the best that you can, right? Just to be responsible. It takes a load off. Your food bill will go down. Your body will fall to its own natural weight, and it's actually quite enjoyable. I mean, I love it. So let's explore our next clip as we focus in on sugar, understanding what it is, and fat being the flip side, unhealthy fat, of skinny. Let's take a look.
Maggie, in front of you, you have a litre of orange juice, which is made from 12 oranges. And in front of you, Kanika, we have 12 oranges. And what we want you to do is we want you to, well, eat or drink what you've got in front of you as much as you can. It's not a race. We just want you to eat or drink until you feel you've had enough. Okay? So, are you ready?
Yes.
And away you go.
Thank you. Okay.
You do like oranges?
I do, yes. I can't do any more, actually.
That's it. Done.
That's it. You're full. Yeah. And Maggie's still going.
Maggie's still going? So, Maggie, you've drunk, what, 3/4 of a litre of orange juice? And Kanika, you've had...
1.5.
1.5 oranges.
So what does that mean?
What does that mean? What does that actually mean? Right. Yeah. Well, Maggie, you have just drunk approximately 18 teaspoons of sugar.
Wow, okay.
Okay. Whereas you have had maybe 3.5, something like that, teaspoons of sugar in that. And that's the thing. The reason you've managed to eat less is because the orange is full of fibre as well. It's chock full of fibre. There's got two things it does. First of all, it keeps you satisfied. It fills you up much more than the orange juice does. The thing is, you can't eat as much sort of oranges as you can orange juice. I mean, you couldn't eat 9 oranges or 12 oranges, could you? Not in a day. And the second thing it does is it actually makes the sugar that you have eaten release very slowly into your blood.
Okay, so there are benefits, despite the fact that fruit has got sugar in, there are benefits for eating fruit.
Definitely. Fruit, it's full of fibre, vitamins, it's great for you. Fruit juice, on the other hand, you just, you know, in moderation, it's good for you, but just be aware of the sugar that's in it.
So, without realising it, not only has Maggie managed to drink 5 times the sugar that Kanika has eaten, it'll get into her bloodstream super fast.
All right then. So, as you can see with that orange juice experiment, rather, the person that was eating the oranges could not even finish her oranges. So that's a great example of when I'm constantly stressing or emphasizing whole, living, fresh, unprocessed foods, right? The body's not a graveyard, right? The brain is not a graveyard. So we're going to dump all kinds of waste product and toxic substances there. But also with the juice, even though the juice is natural and it's fruit juice, it's very easy to guzzle fruit juices down. And there's a time and a place for fruit juices. But with many of us with irregular sleep patterns, where we're sleep deprived quite often, and erratic blood sugar levels, and lots of fat floating around in the blood, that combination of too much fat in the blood with jugs and jugs of fruit juice is not a winning combination. So there is actually a science, right, and an order to how we digest food and how we want to put the food in our system. Quite often, some of us don't even taste the food that we're putting into our mouth. So we'll be drinking all of this juice back and we don't even take the time to swish it in our mouth and taste it, right? These are the habitual patterns that we've picked up in this fast-paced lifestyle, Western lifestyle. But the biggest take home right there was the person couldn't even finish two or three oranges, and the other person was just chugging back all this orange juice. So it's a beautiful thing to see practical education, just as simple as Grandma Lou could have told you, right? Because if somebody can show you, it's easier for the light bulbs to go off in the head. And then if we combine that with taste that's delicious, and if it's sustainable and not super expensive, then it becomes a no-brainer. And we want eating healthy to become a no-brainer. That is our tradition. That is our legacy. It's not rocket science. It's fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. All we have to do is really learn how to prepare it in a way that's delicious and tasty and take it on the road, feed other people, you know, which Grandma Lou always did. Share your beautiful food with people, and you can really start a trend, right? Because either you're going to go on other folks' side or they're going to come on your side. That's one of the reasons why I would serve so many cakes and pies to family members, because it was a way to get them to really enjoy the food and to ask for more and become more interested in preparing their own, right? So today with the Grandma Lou Show, we always want to stay on the side of positivity, because Grandma looked at the glass half full. That was her way. She didn't have Eckhart Tolle and all these self-development classes. She was simple and just present and pleasant. So she looked at the glass half full. And I love to be around grandmothers and women that prepare their food, quite often with hand tools, right? Quite often with no Vitamixes or dehydrators and all this fancy stuff. Quite often they'll have a knife or a cutting board that's been in their family for generations and generations. And they're just calmly and peacefully preparing the food. It's such a meditation. And in finishing out with today's show, I'm going to share with you what I'd love to take part in is either participating with Grandma, so Grandma Lou has made her transition from this plane now, but I love to seek out those grandmothers who make kimchi and cultured vegetables, who take their time when they're preparing the food, right? Where it's an enjoyment, it's a pleasure, They're not gossiping on the phone. But if you need to talk on the phone today in modern times, to put a headset, I've recommended that many clients put a headset on and can have their homie on the other line, and both of them are preparing their foods together, right? So there's a way you can use the technology for positivity. But these women were so present with their knives and the cutting and putting love into the food. So we're going to leave you for this episode of the Grandma Lou Show with the grandmothers and village life. There's a key to living a garden culture way of life that's very peaceful and is very fulfilling. So let's just tune in to one of the grandmothers, and you let me know in the comments, how do you feel in watching these grandmothers prepare their food with the most simple ingredients? They don't have sur la table and the container store and bed and bath. So quite often they have a cutting board, one or two knives, a few bowls, and that's it. But you tell me and share with me, what do you feel in watching these women prepare and these grandmothers prepare food for their family? Let's take a look. sauce that tastes delicious.
Definitely.
Mmm.
That's like a burst of
We over here in the studio salivating. Listen. Look at here, Grandma Lou Show. Listen, I can't be the only one that, see, you know that food is delicious. The food is prepared with love. The food is prepared with love. The fruits and vegetables, they are prepared. We actually didn't make it. We're preparing it. The food is prepared with love. I get excited. That kind of stuff makes me happy because I know that food is going to taste good. Eat food that's prepared with love. Eat food that is prepared with love, right? On all levels. You're taking your time to prepare it. It's going into your body to make your brain and to make your arms and for your heart and your arteries. That's what the food is for. It has a consciousness to it. It has an awareness. What are you choosing to put into your lungs and your heart and your body? That's also contributing to the kind of thoughts you're going to have. You know, if no blood is getting to your brain, how can you have good quality thoughts? How can you solve problems and challenges if you're not giving your body the proper food? Food that does not leave waste on your waist. Food that does not put toxic waste into your colon. This is so elementary. This is so Grandma Lou. This is so common sense. There is an extreme disconnect. We're moving at such a pace that we're not even stopping to think about what we're putting into our body temples. It's a big problem. It's something that's costing us, so we have to slow down to look at what is the true cost. And it is very profitable for you to keep moving at a pace and to keep putting things in your mouth that go to your brain and throughout your whole body that cause disease, and get other people to amen you on how much fun it is to poison your being. You know, I'm not looking to be a party pooper, and I'm not here to tell grown folks what to do. But if you have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, and if you have a willingness to practice love for your own being and your own presence while you're here on this plane, then eat foods that are kind to your body, that are kind to the planet, that are kind to other creatures. This is so simple. There's a disconnect, and we want to connect. And I mentioned this before, or I might not have mentioned this, biophotons. Look it up. It's the energy in cells. How can I explain it? It's what contributes to fish swimming together as a school. It's what contributes to birds flying all together as a unit as they move to another location with the weather. It's what allows you to have a sense of connection. And it's 2018, so many of you may know or may not know that it's been confirmed that we have more than 5 senses. And there is a sense of connection to other people, to our bodies, to the earth. So eating whole, fresh, living, unprocessed foods feeds that sense, those biophotons. So that's something you can research on your own. But in order to have a sense of connection to the earth, it would make sense to eat things that come from the earth, where the peels and the seeds go back into the earth. It will plug you right in. So you don't have to spend so much money on 50 million diet books, but there's still no connection, right? Grandma Lou and those elders had it down, the connection to preparing food with love, serving everybody that came through their door, being present and pleasant. So this is Kwasa with the Grandma Lou Show. Please share this show with anyone who you know would benefit. Please make sure you go on over to Body-Culinary on YouTube and subscribe to our channel, and check out the free puppet series, Sister Butterfly and Sister Monkey, Learn to Eat Better. And we will see you next week on the Grandma Lou Show. Take care.